jump right in. Before we get to WrestleMania, we have to talk about the biggest news from wrestling this week, and it is CM Punk sitting down with Ariel Helwani to go through pretty much everything that happened during his AEW run. And as much last week, we had a video go kind of, big for us, and it was very true how much I dislike CM Punk. I've never been a CM Punk fan. I don't enjoy him at all. And to see him in WWE does nothing for me. And to see this interview, I have to say, I have never been more intrigued, been more liked an interview more with a hot air balloon before in my life. That's all I got to say. So the three biggest things from the interview, Bob. The interview went on forever. He said a lot, but let's narrow it down to the three biggest things. What's the first thing that sort of stuck out to you from this interview that you want to touch on?
Well, the first thing is his comments about Hangman Page. We got a little bit of clarity on that situation. And if you've been living under a rock in the world of professional wrestling for the past few years, what happened with Hangman Page and CM Punk kind of needs to be studied, because Hangman Page just dropped a line on a promo that wasn't scripted, hinting that CM Punk got Colt Cabana fired. This report with Dave Meltzer that was leaked, probably by the Elite. CM Punk definitely thinks it was by the Elite, and that led to the end of everything. That led to CM Punk turning against the company, and they had this promo before the match at Double or Nothing. CM Punk defeats Hangman Page at Double or Nothing, but he felt like he was they were trying to like dim his star, was I think the cringeworthy words he used. But yes, but what he said about Hangman Page after that promo, he went up to him backstage and he said, I spoke to him and was like, why'd you do that? He thinks I got one of his friends fired, which he didn't. He thinks he got Hangman Page thought that he got Colt Cabana fired, which has never been proven. But I went to Tony Khan, and the lawyer said, you need to fix that, because if I do, you're not going to like how I fix it. And I thought I was being professional by not just murdering him on television. I know some people are going to be upset about that, going to be like, oh, he's talking about that guy again. But with me, respect is the default. I respect everybody until you do something that makes me lose my respect for you. And I had never done anything to any of those guys beforehand. So that's where we get off on this. What do you like? Here's my thing. Like, the comment itself, when it was made by Hangman Page in that promo, the workers' rights thing, that infamous line, I thought literally nothing of it when he said it. I was like, what the hell? That was a weird line. And then it snowballs into this thing. But here's my point that I want to say. Like, CM Punk obviously holds a grudge like nobody else in the world, right?
Uh-huh.
But if they actually went over the promo beforehand, like he said to Helwani, and they went over the points, and then you go out there and just completely change it, and this is the World Heavyweight Championship, this is their main feud, go ahead and do a pay-per-view. Hangman Page deserves some blame too, but the way Punk responded, then 2 months later, after he freaking dove off the stage and broke his foot because he can never stay healthy, 2 months later he comes back and responds to Hangman Page and calls him the coward shit in West Virginia. That's CM Punk being petty, but it started with Hangman. But what are your thoughts on Punk's comments about Hangman Page? I know you got to diss him. Just get it over with.
Well, first off, we have to take this entire story from CM Punk as truth. And if we are to do that this segment
everyone else has to sign an NDA apparently, so we have to.
If we have to take this as truth that they met backstage and talked about the promo, and then Hangman went out there and immediately went off script, and CM Punk couldn't really hear him, and he was struggling to hear him because he had to make sure, TV is very expensive, everything that he said in that, to all get to Hangman screwed Hangman to start this off. Then yes, Hangman absolutely deserves some of the blame. But as you said in the very beginning, and as I've said, I've rewatched that promo a bunch. Every time this CM Punk story comes up, I go I must be misremembering what Hangman Page said, and I go and rewatch, and I'm like, that's wrestling. Everything that happened in that ring that evening was wrestling. They're trying to win over the crowd, be the reason why I need to beat you because of this, that, and the other thing, you MF or blub. Like, that's all wrestling. It was building to a match that made me really excited to see it. And if CM Punk felt he got slighted by Hangman Page, again, like, you could act one of two ways. There are two paths you can go down when you are slighted, and CM Punk chose the one to burn every bridge that was ever built in front of him. CM Punk did not have to sit down in the middle of the ring and challenge Hangman Page to come out for this belt when he knew Hangman Page wasn't in the building. Of course, Hangman's not going to show up and then look like a pussy because he didn't answer the call from CM Punk. If it all started with Hangman Absolutely, Hangman deserves some of the blame, but you can't lift any of the blame off of CM Punk for continuing down the road. Sometimes you need to be a bigger man, and when it comes
Right.
to being a bigger man, can we talk about Jack Perry?
Oh God. Yes, we can talk about the Jack Perry incident and All In, but this is what I just want to on the Hangman thing. He did say he went to Tony Khan and to the lawyer and said, "Take care of that," and nothing happened. So that's going to
Sure,
be a through. That's going
we're
to be a
taking
through.
CM Punk's word as gospel, absolutely. But if you went
Well,
to your
okay,
boss and said, "Hey, you got to take care of my coworker, or I'm going to take care of it," what do you think your boss would do? But keep going.
probably not nothing. Probably not nothing.
Sure, not nothing
No, yeah,
not nothing to you. You better
right. All
take
right.
care of this coworker, or I'm going to take care of it. Interesting words to say.
All right. But then we get to the Jack Perry incident. There's a little bit of backstory in case you have been living under a rock again. Is story time with Robert Lentini, baby. CM Punk led the first match of it all in 2023 at Wembley was CM Punk versus Samoa Joe on the main card for the Real World Championship. Right before that, Hook battled Jungle Boy and the FTW, the title that nobody cares about match.
Now,
They
bad
got it.
Jungle Boy for the first time turning heel. Jungle Boy.
Yeah. No, yeah, he's Jungle Man now, Jack Perry.
I think it's pivotal to this story. But keep going.
Yeah, you're right. I guess. So what Punk describes his story as Tony Schiavone, producer Mike Mansouri, Daryl from production, someone else all told to Jack Perry in a rental car, dude, you can't smash a window with a lead pipe. And then Punk goes up to him, and I thought this was very hilarious. He's like,
No, you're missing a step. They went to Punk and said, "Can you please help and talk to
yeah.
Jack?" They were begging on their knees, "Please, Punk, come save us." Keep going.
Well, yeah, and then he went up to Jack Perry and said, "It's a rental car." I love that line. Just, it's a rental car. You can't just smash the window and not return it. And then he went. That's the main thing. That's the backstory. Jack Perry wanted to smash a rental car window, according to CM Punk, and 5 people told him no, and he cursed them all out. And finally, Punk said, "It's a fucking rental car." It was just, what are you doing? You can't just smash a window of a rental car and return it.
To which, with Punk's words, Jack immediately backed off and said, "No, you're right. You're right."
No, he said, "I thought it would be a really cool idea."
Yeah, but there was no fighting Jack Perry that day. Fast forward to.
No, we don't do this stuff on Saturdays. Do it on Wednesday was his exact. We don't do this on Collision. Go to Dynamite. Just egos clashing more there. And then we get to All In. Jack Perry versus Hook. During the match, he bangs on the windshield of a car and says, "Real glass, cry me a river." I think he's the one who gets slammed on it. I don't even remember. He loses the match.
He is. It's wrestling. He is.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
It loses the match, goes backstage. Punk confronts him. He says he has people there, his friends, but he doesn't want to name them in case they get punished for being his friends and all of the wrestling. And he said he confronted after he went to Tony Khan first and said, "You got to do something about this." And Tony Khan said, "What do you want me to do?" And CM Punk says, "I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Be the fucking boss." And then he did. Tony Khan just sat there, I guess. And then Jack Perry walks to the backstage. Jack Perry said, Punk says, "Why do you want to do this internet shit on television?" This is all according to Punk. Perry says, "Why don't you do something about it?" And Punk says, "Dude, I could fucking kill you." And he's laughing when he says this with Hawani. And then he said, "I thought I was doing the responsible thing. I didn't punch anybody. I just choked somebody a little bit," which is just such a ridiculous line.
Mm-hmm.
But moving past that one, we get to, he says, that's what he says. "I didn't punch anybody. I just choked somebody a little bit. Samoa Joe was there and told me to stop, and then I quit. I turned to Tony Khan and said, 'This place is a fucking joke, man, and you're a clown. I quit.'" And then Samoa Joe and Jerry Lynn talked him into having the match.
Convinced him to do the match, and they went and have a match, and then he quits. Yeah.
That's where we're at with the Jack Perry incident. Jack Perry still has not returned to AEW. He's the scapegoat in New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's tore up his contract. He's the rebel. He's the bad boy. Just not allowed in AEW. But that was his comments on Jack Perry. We get some clarity on CM Punk's side of things. There's no NDA, so Jack Perry can respond at any moment. Mm-hmm. So what you have a lot to say about this? I can tell. We'll go back and forth about this, but I think we're going to disagree on this one as well. What are your thoughts on CM Punk's comment?
Let me tell you one thing. Jack Perry and his build aside, like the Jack Perry-esque of this aside, Jack Perry going into business for himself, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe a fucking word of this from CM Punk. I don't believe the tenor of this in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. That Jack Perry was backstage yelling at crew members who, again, every story that has ever come out of Jack Perry before this moment was, dude, he's awesome to work with. He's a rich kid's son, but he's so down to earth. Everyone loves working with him. Everyone loves Jack Perry. But no, this day, Jack Perry came to work with a fucking, like, he had to get his way. And everyone, Tony Schiavone, the guy grabbing coffee, the producer, the doctor, F you, middle fingers to everybody. No, I'm breaking this window. And they go crawling on their hands and knees. Mr. Phil, come save us, please. Jack Perry's so scary. His hair's on fire. He won't listen to any of us. And Phil comes walking in his big suit to say,
he's a showrunner.
Mr. Jack, let me show you why this is incorrect. And Jack Perry immediately, he was yelling at everybody before, but now Phil shows up, a man that probably they haven't interacted one bit, and immediately goes, oh, well, you're right, I won't do it anymore, and goes back to his trailer and everything's fine. Until once again, the person who made the first false step was never CM Punk. It was Jack on live pay-per-view to say to the camera, real glass MFer, playing into a storyline that is out into the open. Everyone knew what was going on when he said that moment. He is playing the heel character, a heel character that was not working. And this man, a performer, is struggling to get this heel character over, trying to take Jungle Boy Jack Perry to the new realm of whatever that character can be on wrestling television. Points at the camera, inside baseball. This is going to make people pop. This is me trying to get myself over. And then what happens to the real glass? I'm the one that takes it because I'm the heel laying down to the baby face. It was a wrestling moment that pissed CM Punk off again. So I don't believe a fucking word of the backstory. And I believe still that there was nothing wrong with what Jungle Boy Jack Perry did in the moment on pay-per-view, and that Phil overreacted in the back. And if you're going to, if Samoa Joe was the saving grace back there and stopped everything, and it was just a choke out and Jack Perry initiated physical conflict again, we're believing CM Punk before hearing any other side of this story or any other dirt sheet whatsoever. But to me, that's where I stand on it. Nothing new from my angle.
Yeah, no, I just completely disagree on the. I mean, I agree with you on CM Punk overreacting, and he should have gotten over. And under no circumstances should he ever put his hands on anybody else. That's the crux. I disagree with that. There's no reason to punch somebody, choke somebody. That's 30-year ago behavior in wrestling that he clearly is never going to get out of his system. But yeah, I just don't agree with everybody knew about it. It was like the internet audience knows about it. I knew about it. People read Dave Meltzer knew about the glass thing, but not everybody knew about it. And it's a weird, just on camera to the TV. It seems like you're just begging for something to happen there. To me, if you're not running it, talking to Punk personally, you're not running it with him, you have no communication with him, and you just go on in business for yourself the same way that Hangman Page did. It feels like I can see where he felt like nobody wanted him there, which is really sad because he was their biggest draw, and he probably will be their biggest draw that they're going to get for years and years and years. So this is a huge setback for them. But yeah, I agree with some of your points. Like, I agree with him being wrong about the way he handled it. I mean, I'm not that big of a fanboy. I'm not going to sit here and say CM Punk did everything right. He did a ton wrong. He did a ton wrong. Putting his hands on Jack Perry, number one. But Jack Perry, of all people, talking shit about CM Punk unsolicited on camera, I just don't agree with. But let's move on.
I don't think he talked shit about CM Punk on camera. I think he talked shit about the moment that AEW.
Who else would he been talking about?
We'll get to this next point right now. AEW is all about the smart marks. AEW is all about the Meltzer ratings. AEW is all about the internet wrestling community. That's the target audience, the target demo. And that's who Jack Perry was playing towards when he mentioned that moment. This is real glass MFer. I don't believe he was taking a shot at Phil. I believe he was acting as a heel in that moment, trying to play to the audience that he wants to play to. And obviously, it spiraled out of control. I did not agree with many of the things CM Punk said during this interview. I'm also never have been on CM Punk's side. The one thing I did agree with was him saying that Tony Khan is not a boss, that this wrestling company is failing because there are people in the wrestling company that are focused more on 5-star matches than they are getting people in the door and selling tickets. And I believe he said if that's the case, they're not in the same business as I am. That part, I agreed with wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I'll just read you the actual quote real quick as a quick one. He said, I know a lot of people are going to be upset, but it's just not a real business. It's not about selling tickets, not about drawing money. It's not about making money. It's just not. Then he was asked, what do you think it is about? I don't know. Having good matches, maybe. So there was my main takeaway from this, watching this interview, and I went back and watched some old Punk things after, like his first couple of things on Dynamite. He didn't go there sour. Like, he wanted it to work, and then things just drastically fell apart. And that my whole takeaway is it was never going to work. It was absolutely never going to work with these personalities, because Tony Khan is like the richest guy on the planet that just loves wrestling, and he wants to have these dream matches. And he's like, all right, we'll have CM Punk, and we're going to, oh my God, they fought. Let's create a new show. We'll separate it. That's going to work. And we learned in this interview that Punk said, just let me go. He didn't want to do Collision. He wanted to get out of there after all in 2020, all out 2022, the brawl out situation. Realistically, he probably should have just been fired then. That would have been the best situation for everyone. Yes. But they tried to make it work with the Collision, and I like that part. I believe Punk there that he wanted out, and he didn't even want anything to do with Collision. I believe him there, and he said, Tony, this isn't going to work. And Tony just wanted to make it work, and the only way that would have ever worked is if Tony Khan or somebody in position of power got those guys in a room and said, you don't have to like each other at all, but we got, you're destroying our company from within, and we're trying to take on WWE, and they're getting rid of all their problems, it seems, while we're just running in problem. But it's just very disappointing. But my main takeaway from all of it, from the entire interview, is that it was destined to fail. Just the attitudes of the elite, what they think professional wrestling is, what they think, their style. I don't agree with. CM Punk obviously doesn't agree with, but there's a place for it. But now they can't be the whole show, and I think that was Punk's whole point. Like, you can have it in spurts and bits, these 5-star, spot fest matches, but if it's the entire show, it's not a sustainable business. And I completely agree with that, because you try watching 2 hours of unbelievable matches after each, it's just with no story, it gets boring. You need the story. I need to be invested in the characters.
And you also need to care about the people involved, and they need to care about each other if they're going to work together. And clearly CM Punk was not made for that world. However, when it comes to culture, the last thing we're going to say about CM Punk, we've already spent far too long on him. We're going to do all the WrestleMania preview matches coming up very shortly. But the one thing I want to say, and we had talked about this right before we started recording, this quote to me is what I sent to Bob offline and wanted to talk about, because to me it perfectly encapsulates how CM Punk views himself and the world. The quote was, and this has to go with how WWE is now versus what it was. CM Punk stated that somebody explained to him, I'm super glad that you're back here, CM Punk. I'm super glad that you, CM Punk, are back here so you can experience the culture backstage that you helped create, because you were a catalyst for it. Then you left, and now you're back. I don't believe this interaction ever happened. I believe someone probably said, like, Phil, I can't wait for you to see how WWE is now versus what it was when you were last here. That I believe. Someone coming up to him and saying, you created this nirvana. Look at the heaven that you've built with you were the martyr. You were the Jesus on the cross, and this is your heaven that you get to walk into. That I will never believe. And I believe that if you took some of CM Punk's quotes from this MMA hour and you put Donald Trump's voice over them, they would sound like the same person. That's just me. That's just me. So take that for however you want.
Unfortunately, they'd also be two of the most popular people in entertainment, right? That's just the way the world works. The people that say the crazy shit, the people that say the viral shit, they get it. The nice guys with the awkward standing Tony Khan standing in front of the cameras, they don't get elected. That's just the way the world works.
No, they do not. No, they do not. Speaking of the most popular thing, let's move on to WrestleMania.